Well, this is the closest anyone has ever been to the site after the collapse, because as soon as that scaffold fell apart, OSHA had to come out, bring their camera, and start taking pictures of the damage and all of the violations that came with it. Ricardo Batista was tied off. He was all the way up at the top. This connection, this is one of the problems. It's missing the lower half of this. You can see over here, there's a base plate for it to connect into. That doesn't exist right here. Should be a pin in this hole right here that locks and keeps those two connections together. This is what happens. It gets disconnected like this, and like this, and like this. His wife and his kids still haven't even seen these photos. Instead, OSHA gave it to us, and Performance Builders, instead of talking to the family, they're trying to fight with the OSHA board by saying they didn't do anything wrong. Ever since we started covering this story about 6 months ago, it seems like people are paying attention. Performance Builders here? Banners like this, Performance Builders making a killing, are popping up all over town at their work sites. It's one way to make a statement, but for the victim's widow, it's a sad reminder of the way she says that company has treated her.
I just can't understand it. That this happened.
Ricardo Batista will never be back for his wife or his 3 boys.
And he just tells me, why, Mom? Why? He tells me he just wants to go to heaven with his dad.
I have some questions for you, if you could tell me anything about this right here.
You guys need to leave. You're not allowed in this space.
The more we look, the more we hear about a culture of problems with the company OSHA says is responsible for Ricardo's death on a collapsed Tivoli Village scaffold.
This is a private space, so.
You kicking me out?
Yeah, no, I'm asking you to leave.
When interviewed, stated he had never been provided ladder safety training.
From the beginning, we knew about the sheer number of OSHA cases against Performance Builders. Now we're hearing from people on the inside.
I'd actually like to make sure they're never up and running again.
Jesse Lewis was at Tivoli Village that day and saw the scaffold come down. He got fired after calling OSHA.
They say you can call them anonymously and tell them if a site is done wrong. I've done it twice and nobody showed up.
Does it feel like safety is a priority for this company?
Seems like the only time they're trying to worry about safety is to make sure people like you don't catch them.
He says it's especially tough because he knows the company didn't put up the scaffold properly, and it was missing pieces that lock it together. His brother still works for them.
About 2 months later, he ended up ordering about 500-600 pins. We didn't have no pins, actually. And the only ones we did have were all rusted, all beat up.
Is it cheaper to just pay the fine than have a safe work site?
I would sit back and say, you know, at this point, I mean, it is.
Yeah, I've seen that claim a couple of times. You know, it's an interesting perspective, but I don't think I have a comment for that.
After months of asking that same question, asking why Performance Builders is only being fined $7,000 for 2 serious violations, that's the only answer we could get from OSHA.
I can definitely see both sides of it.
We found out OSHA actually gave Performance Builders a discount. You broke the rules, your employee died because of it, but here's 30% off, 20% for size and 10% for having a good history, even though you've had more than a dozen investigations in 3 years.
To be honest with you, in this particular case, we're still trying to figure out exactly how the 10% was applied.
Chief Administrative Officer Jess Langford says the discount policy is under review, and they have the option not to hand them out.
It looks to be like it possibly is a mistake, but I have to do further research.
Even though somebody died in this case, that doesn't matter when talking money.
The fact there's a fatality, there's no penalty for fatalities.
We don't want to see fines. We'd like to see him in jail.
I think the only justice out there is that the owner of this company should go to jail. Fines don't mean anything. I think they should lock him up.
You guys leave, please.
Randy, how you doing?
Please leave.
You kicking me out?
Please leave.
Are you kicking me out, Randy? You got something else to hide, or are you going to finally answer some questions for me?
Please leave. And you don't get no permission to air this. Thank you.
You got people protesting outside for a reason, Randy. That's Performance Builders owner Randy Sorensen. And under OSHA guidelines, they can put him in jail if they classify these violations as willful. That's if he and his company clearly disregarded the rules. Days before Ricardo died, quote, Randy could have identified the cut brace that was on ground level and in plain view. Quote, the overwhelming majority of safety checklists are missing information or identify issues that were simply not followed up on. And less than a month after the collapse, his company's other site across town had the exact same violations. We asked OSHA, these are your words, these are your investigations. Was a criminal investigation ever on the table? No comment.
I would have to hold an opinion on that one for a later date.
We've got this company called Performance Builders. Our government today and OSHA, they got out there and they said, we're going to negotiate this fine for killing somebody to $7,000.
By now, the construction world knows the story of Ricardo Batista. Just like everyone else, he wanted to go home to his wife and kids at the end of the day, but his company's unsafe scaffold never let that happen.
Let us do our job and stop killing people.
You're not going to kill our carpenters in the name of profits, and you're not going to lower the standards of Las Vegas.
I don't think anything that anybody's going to do is going to make the family feel better about losing a valued family member.
OSHA can't change what happened, and he's right. They might not be able to make the family feel better, but they found a way to make them feel worse. They settled.
Well, I wasn't part of the discussions on the reductions in penalties.
That's J.D. Decker, who pointed us to his subordinate, Jess Langford, the man in charge of OSHA.
I'm not intimately familiar with the case. That'd be a Jess Langford question. That'd be Jess, yeah. Again, Jess will be able to answer that for you.
Apparently, Langford has all the answers, but has refused to give us an interview since February.
Yeah, I've seen that claim a couple of times.
Instead, he had his boss tell us they're going to start having more administrative oversight and stop giving discounts when workers die.
On this case, it's too late, sure. Yeah. On this case, it's too late. So these would be policies that going forward as a result of what we've learned from this case.
Somebody's pulling somebody's strings. I want to know who they know down at OSHA.
It's just corrupt. There's a huge problem with the system. How does a life worth $7 grand? I mean, I don't get it.
We're not messing around, and we're not going to wait for the government to fix our problems. We'll fix them ourselves. Yeah. Right there.
The news team, FOX5 News, has been doing a report on the accidents that Randy Sorensen's been having.
Tonight in a FOX5 exclusive, the company responsible for the death, apparently they're repeating some of the same mistakes.
Now, if that story sounds familiar, that's because this is now the third time we've reported this exact same problem on Performance Builders work sites.
It might look like a taxi cab from far away, but it has a message that's making a lot of people in this building angry.
Morning, buddy. You want some good information? Look up Tivoli Village. Remember to be careful.
What? What are you going to do? What was that, a threat?
Yeah. Have a nice day.
Hey, why don't you shut your mouth?
Have a nice day.
Be careful of what?
Working for Performance Builders, they're killing people.
Don't you know that? Can't you read the car?
Look at all the OSHA violations.
Look at all those. Look at all those inspections. All those cases.
Wow, that says a lot on the back of the windshield.
Yeah, go look it up.
The one.
OSHA.gov. OSHA.gov.
Public knowledge. It what?
Nothing to say after OSHA.gov, huh?
Randy Sorensen and Performance Builders have repeatedly gotten in trouble for unsafe work sites. His employee died and he was on site, able to fix the problem, but didn't. Instead, he refuses to take accountability and has his people call the police when they don't like what they see.
Oh, here they come.
There they are.
There they are. Beautiful.
As soon as he starts charging down here towards me, that's on him.
I know.
Are you an idiot?
That could be at 5 o'clock.
Something like that is not a threat. You're just saying be careful. You know, be careful falling off the curb. Be careful, don't fall on the rocks.
I told my mom told me to be careful today.
They wanted to know more about the message.
Can I ask what's this all about?
Sure. Do you remember Tivoli Village? It's funny that FOX5 has jumped on this, done numerous interviews. You know, where was OSHA?
Where was OSHA? Well, there was a $7,000 fine for those violations that killed Ricardo Batista. We asked, what about this most recent case? It sure seems like a repeat violation. They're saying, well, we're not going to classify it as repeat because technically they were still fighting those first 2 charges. We asked OSHA again about the pins. They asked Randy about the pins, and his response was, well, we don't need to put them in unless they're facing 90 to 100 mile per hour winds. That's like hurricane force winds.
We have a Fox 5 update now to a story we have been following. OSHA is changing how much it's fining a construction company after a man who works for that company was killed on the job. This comes after Fox 5's extensive investigation into the company Performance Builders. A man died during work at Tivoli Village because of a faulty scaffold. OSHA has now upgraded the charge from a $2,400 serious violation to a $44,000 willful violation.
A year ago today, Ricardo lost his life at this site. I want to thank everybody for coming out.
You look around here. All these people are your family. I know it won't bring them back, but you look around, there's a lot of love for you.
It was the first time Jacqueline Batista saw the spot where her husband died. It took a year for her to work up the courage, but she finally saw the building he built until the scaffold he was on top of fell apart.
We promised you we wouldn't forget and always be there for you and make sure the company that how this happened, it would not happen again.
Seeing the spot where he took his last breath, it's heartbreaking.
Ricardo Batista was 30 years old. His oldest son, Ricardo Jr., is now 7.
He's still asking, Mom, where's Dad? I said, baby, your dad's in heaven. I said, Mom, I want to see my dad for the last time. I said, you're going to see him one day, baby.
But there's still one question the kids ask that nobody can answer. Why did it have to happen?
Contractors like Performance Builders cut corners, cut safety. And she told me she wanted to see where her husband took his last breath. It took my breath away.
Over the past year, we've found out the company responsible has continued to make the same mistakes they made on August 22nd, 2016. Performance Builders is still in business, but missing from any event to honor their employee.
How can people be so heartless? You had a chance to prevent this and you didn't.
You got people protesting outside for a reason, Randy.
And he just tells me, why, Mom, why? He tells me he just wants to go to heaven with his dad.
For a year and a half, Jacqueline Batista has been suffering through life without her husband.
Such a simple act could have saved a life.
Ricardo Batista would still be alive if the company he worked for put safety pins in the scaffold he was working on.
We've got this company called Performance Builders. Our government today and OSHA, they got out there and they said, we're going to negotiate this fine for killing somebody to $7,000.
Since then, OSHA admits the fines should have been higher, especially since we discovered the company has been repeatedly cited for making the same mistakes. You got something else to hide, or are you going to finally answer some questions for me?
Please leave.
Let us do our job and stop killing people.
You think he was bribing you?
That was the first job I had in a while.
Because of your reporting and your investigation, there's still so much more to do.
You got people protesting outside for a reason, Randy. The next step is a lawsuit.
We expect a fight. Someone from the company came to my client's house a day or two after the accident with an envelope of cash.
The law firm representing Jacqueline Batista says you can't put a price on Ricardo's life, but the main goal is to finally change the way this company does business. Her main goal has never been money.
It's hard. Every time, I see the news, just go outside and cry. I would like to see him in jail.